We were sitting on the back porch this morning having our coffee, and Lori said, I think I'm going to wear something cool to church. Thought, you know what? I'm wearing a shirt that was given to me by Habitat for Humanity Nepal. It doesn't get any cooler than that. So, namaste. Miranam John Bedell ho.
Namaste. Miranam Scott ho.
Dhanyabad, Scott. Is that not a dazzling display of the Nepali language? Unfortunately, that's all I got. What I said was greetings. My name is John Bedell. Scott introduced himself. I said, thank you, Scott. Those are the only Nepali words that we learned. But like always, there was a lot of communication that went on without the use of words. And that's a part of what I want to talk about today. But first of all, thank you for inviting me back. I guess I didn't do too badly last time. And to all you dads out there, I don't see too many out here, but there's a few. Happy Father's Day. On the face of it, my message this morning doesn't sound much like a Father's Day message, but it actually is. The biggest thing my father taught me was that you must help everyone you can, anytime you can, anywhere you can. So for me, talking about a humanitarian trip is very much a Father's Day message. I doubt if you've ever heard anyone begin a sermon by quoting Siegfried and Roy, but Roy Horn once said something I kind of like. He said, it's better to be an ordinary guy living an extraordinary life than the other way around. And when people ask what somebody like me could have to say from a pulpit, that's my explanation. This ordinary guy has had some extraordinary experiences with Habitat teams. And I feel like there's some value in recounting some of the stories. So let's get the storytelling underway. I think most of you know that Scott went on the trip with me this year. You might not be aware of the fact that Scott and I have been friends for more than 4 decades. Leave that without further comment because we are getting old. And we've worked together on God knows how many different things. I think most of you saw the two of us out barbecuing up a storm last week at the church yard sale. Scott's one of those people that'll jump in and help no matter what I've got on the go, church or home or whatever. And when I tell him I need a hand, he always says yes first and then asks what I need. You'd think he'd know better by now, but when I mounted this pulpit, this projector overhead, I had him standing on top of the pulpit here with a pole, holding up the boom and the projector while I fastened the supports. And when he found out that I was booked here to talk about the trip, he offered to help. Public speaking is near the top of the list for everyone's most feared things, but he offered to help anyway. But what he didn't know was that he had already helped. Without even knowing it, he had kind of crystallized the theme of the talk. I'll give you a little bit of history here. For many, many years, Scott and I have met on Wednesday nights at Clancy's Bar to sit and solve all the world's problems. We're not entirely successful yet, but we keep working on it. We sit in the same bar stools in the same corner, looking kind of like those two old guys from the Muppet Show. When they're sitting on a bar stool, everybody thinks they're profound. But on 2 consecutive Wednesday nights, Scott actually hit on something important. The first time he commented, I wish we could have done more for the homeowners. And then a week later he said, what I remember is how every time we looked at the homeowner, she smiled. That second one is so very important, and it completely overrules the first. There are those who say that trips like this are not effective, that there are more efficient ways to help. And yeah, the team members could sit at home and we could write big fat checks and send them to Nepal, and maybe the same home would get built for the same recipients. But even though you can send money, what you cannot send is joy. And there is a great deal of joy in doing the kind of humanitarian trip that we did. Sorry about that. Here's the family that we were building for. The woman is paralyzed from the waist down as a result of a bacterial infection that we likely would have treated routinely in Canada. But in her social class in Nepal, treatment simply wasn't available. So she is permanently disabled. As if life in the lower classes of Nepal wasn't hard enough, her problems are at a whole different level. But we were there personally involved in helping her family. We smiled at her and she smiled back. An amazing gift those smiles were, both to her and to our team. That personal connection, the simple joy of participating in helping a family in need, is an extraordinary feeling. Maybe it would be nearly as satisfying to just send money so others could do the work, but I don't see how. There's nothing wrong with sending money if that's what you can do, but doing things personally and directly with your own hands is something special. That joy of personal connection is even built into the stories of our faith. 2 John verse 12 says, "I have much to write to you, but I do not want to use paper and ink. Instead, I hope to visit you and talk with you face to face so that our joy may be complete." I feel like I'm doing brand placement here. I've got a Lee Valley cup, and they just opened in the Falls. To put things into context, here's the home that the family we were building for was living in. Can you imagine the joy that they would be feeling seeing us there, building them a safe, secure, dry home? Habitat's founder, Millard Fuller, said this. He said, "A house is to a family what soil is to a plant. A plant needs to be rooted. A family is like that. If a family is not rooted, it will not flourish. But once a family is well rooted, all kinds of wonderful things will begin to happen." And the very first wonderful thing that happened was that a Canadian team was allowed into this little family's life. We were there personally only for a very short time, but what we built for them will help them for many, many years. And we sincerely hope that their new home brings some joy into their very hard lives. I want to talk a little bit about the construction process we use, since it's a little bit different than what we're used to here. I wish Gerald had been here. The home we worked on was a bamboo frame with walls made of woven split bamboo covered in a special construction medium made from locally sourced building materials. Those building materials were dirt, straw, water, and cow dung. The dung is a binding agent, and it also deters termites from getting into the bamboo. The volunteers on the trip were all more or less adults, but I've never heard so many poop jokes as I heard the week we were over there. Since we're in polite company here, I'll refer to the building material as masala. It's an Indian word for a mix. The masala is mixed in a shallow hole by churning with your feet, kind of like stomping grapes. The locals do it barefoot. We would not be allowed to do that. But we were told when we got there that they had size 11 rubber boots for us to wear. But then we found out that the boots were Nepali size 11, which is kind of like our size 7. So all the guys looked at each other and said, "Yes, we can't fit in the boots, so it'll be the girls that have to do the stomping." But this falls under the heading of be careful what you wish for. Because we couldn't stomp the masala, we were the ones who got to apply it to the walls, which you do by hand. They did have rubber gloves for us, but it was still done by picking it up by hand and pressing it into the woven bamboo. Can't say I've ever built a wall quite that way before. But you know what? It was different, and for us it was unusual, but we quickly got used to it and got into the job. We nicknamed one of the local women the inspector because she was the one who would come around and with gestures and a few words of English, she would tell us whether we were doing it right or not. Now, I'll tell you how different your perspective gets when you're doing one of these builds. In real life, I manage a team of people that create 3D digital models of building framing, which is challenging and satisfying work. But over there, nothing was more satisfying than having the inspector tell you your work was all right. And that was what she'd say if you were doing well. That's all right. At one point, she told me my wall was very nice. Kind of a high point of my day. Yes, my wall is very nice, not just okay. I'm a master of the masala. All of the masala was hand carried in metal pans from the mixing area to where it was being applied to the walls. It goes on quickly, so a lot of those pans get passed. They'd been carrying them in one at a time, but we showed them how to form a chain and move it quicker. At one point, the inspector and one of the other ladies were filling the pans for us. And after a while, they laughed and had to call a timeout because they couldn't keep up, and we had kind of warned them out. They needed a break. And we all shared a good laugh because we had found out just how hard these people work, and it's not easy to tire them out, and we surprised them. It was a kind of a simple moment that we shared with them, but again, sending all the money we own wouldn't have given the team the simple joy of that interaction. There were lots of those little joyful moments on the trip. But one of the other ones that really stands out to me was right near the end. There were a whole bunch of the local women inside the house packing down the floor by stomping on it, while our team leader and I were painting the window frames from the outside. And watching the women pack down the floor, it occurred to our team leader that it looked like they were dancing. So he jokingly started keeping time with them by clapping. And they all caught on, and they were stomping and clapping and singing and laughing. It was magical. I know I keep harping on this, but those people who think we should just send money overseas need to spend some of these moments of simple, innocent joy with the people they're helping. And I can't help but think they'd change their tune. A quote from Helen Keller. She said, "When we do the best that we can, we never know what miracle is wrought in our life or in the life of another." We had a simply outstanding example of that while we were in Nepal. Several members of our team had been in Nepal in 2013, building a home in a little village just outside of Itahari. The story of that home, as it was explained to us, was pretty cool. It was built for a young couple just starting out, whose marriage was not blessed by their families. A bunch of the family had been cohabiting in a small hut, and predictably enough, there was conflict due to the close quarters. But the new home for the young couple gave them all adequate space, and it seems like the families started to come together in the course of helping build the home. So that in itself is cool enough. But after our build was done this year, when we were on our buses in the way back to Biratnagar, we actually detoured and stopped off in the village to see the house and to visit the homeowners, who are still living there, of course. And we got an update on their story. In the 4 years since the house was built, the husband had been in Malaysia for 2 years to make money, so he'd been able to afford to make some further improvements to the house. Originally, one set of parents had lived in one room in the new house. They moved out after a while, and the young family felt that their lives were so blessed that they turned that empty room into a place of worship for their village. Our lives are so blessed here in Canada, but how many of us would even think of taking it that far? It's amazing. When we got there, the family brought out a photo of the Canadian Habitat team that had been there in 2013. They still had it hanging on their wall. And the very best part of the update is this one. The wife, when we were there, was 8 months pregnant with their first child. By now, she would have had that child. And they will raise that child in a home that a team of Canadians built for them. That Canadian part, I mean, we've all been talking about Canada for some months now, and we did it again just a couple of minutes ago. Nice the way that played into my talk. But that Canadian part is important. We surrounded ourselves with Canadian flags on our luggage, on our clothing, on our build site. I've always felt that sporting a Canadian flag is like a badge of respectability throughout the world, and this time was no exception. Even away from the build, when we were touring Kathmandu or other places in Nepal, random people would see our flags and yell, "Hey, Canada!" and wave or come over and shake our hands. It is an amazing, great pleasure to come from somewhere so respected throughout the world. And it's something we should be very proud of. There's an interesting thing that I've noticed when doing builds overseas. It seems like everything is an excuse for a celebration. Our build in Nepal was the same. I think it has to do with having so little to celebrate in their day-to-day lives. It makes it important for them to mark every joyful occasion. We who have so much take it for granted, and they who have so little are so appreciative of the smallest thing. At the start of the build, the Habitat team is welcomed by the community, by the local Habitat and partner agencies, and by the homeowners. There's speeches, there's introductions, and a great sense of anticipation. Then at the end of the build, before we leave, there's celebration again with speeches and thank yous and great sense of accomplishment. And in both cases, the community shows up. It's partly curiosity, but I think it's also a sense that what's happening is noteworthy, and so they want to share in it and be witness to it and share the joy. Some of my teammates seem to kind of resent all the time spent in these celebrations since it took time away from building. But the interaction between us and the community is a huge part of the benefit that comes from us being there. It's a tangible demonstration that strangers from far away care about these people. Again, this is something you can't package up and send to the people. It's something that has to be brought and shared person to person. The single biggest joy on these trips is always the children. There are children who are part of the families that we're building for, but there's also neighborhood children that are intrigued by our presence there. And we find that the communication with the kids is different as well. The adults speak very little English, so most of our communication with them is nonverbal. It's smiles and gestures and nods of the head. But the children are taught English at school, so they're able to communicate with us much better. And it's always something special. Even though we were building in a very small village, there was a group of regulars who stopped by to see us at the build site on their way to and from school every day. My teammate Lori comes from Sudbury, so she brought her iPad to site one day to show the kids what real snow looks like. They have snow, of course, in the Himalayas, but that's more than 100 kilometers away, and most of the townsfolk would never have been more than a mile or two away from home in their entire lives. It was really fun to see their interaction with Lori, since this was her first global village trip, and she was every bit as open and enthusiastic and receptive as the kids were. After a couple of days there, when the kids dropped by, if Lori was inside the building out of sight, first thing they'd say was, "Where's Lori?" It was almost offensive. On the last day when we were there, Lori's little groupies dropped by, and they knew that this was the last time they would see us. They came to site all dressed up. It's profoundly moving when you think about what importance they attached to these pale strangers from the other side of the world who were part of their life for a very short time. There was sadness to leave them behind, but there was a real joy in having been part of their lives for even a short time. John Locke said, "There's frequently more to be learned from the unexpected questions of a child than the discourses of men." Our world's leaders that think they have all the answers and know what everyone should do should spend some time with the children of the world. They could learn a lot. And of course, this too is part of the story of our faith, as Sharon read earlier, for the kingdom of God belongs to such as these. Everyone that knows me has heard me talk kind of endlessly about my Global Village teammates and knows how highly I regard them. There's always a camaraderie that builds around any important task, be it church or work or volunteering, and of course these builds are no different. And if I'm traveling close to where any of my previous teammates live, I try and make time to drop by and see them and catch up. And some of the past teammates end up on same teams again, and it's always a very real pleasure to get reacquainted. Never quite been able to put into words what it is about the people on these trips that makes it so special, but came across a quote that I think says it pretty well. Always judge someone by the way they treat someone who can be of no possible use to them. The people we help in faraway places and the people we interact with while we're there are exactly that. They're of no possible use to us. So the effort we put forth in helping them is entirely altruistic. Even though we always end up getting as much out of it as they do, sometimes more. It is in a real way something noble, and being a part of that is something I'm extremely proud of, and it's something that brings me great joy. So just a couple of closing thoughts about joy. Billy Sunday once said, "If you have no joy in your religion, there's a leak in your Christianity somewhere." I like that one. You think about that for a minute. If there's no joy in what we're doing here, we gotta be doing it wrong. If we're serious about this, joy should always be a part of it. And Mark Twain said, "To get the full value of joy, you must have someone to divide it with." Along with faith and love, joy is one of the rare things that increases the more of it you give away. So my wish for each and every one of us is that we have the opportunity to give and receive every bit of it this world has to offer. Dhanyabad, and namaste.